I'm not going to give much of an infomercial on the University of Dallas. I actually want to talk about universities for a bit. So we'll come back to Rome in a few minutes, but I've been struck over the course of this past year about the way in which universities seem to be in peril in this country. Think about October 7th, a little bit more than a year ago, right? And what ensued? What ensued was, in some ways mystifying. Students engaged in active protest on their campuses, classes being shut down, finals being shut down, and the way in which there's been a wedding between a kind of progressivism that's really aggressive and anti-Semitism, right? What is going on these campuses? What I found particularly disturbing, though, is the way in which university presidents comported themselves before Congress, right? There was not a single moment where one of these elite university presidents articulated the point and purpose of a university. And I think that it's the case that this is, in some ways, not surprising when you look at what has happened in higher education over the last several decades. There's been a departure from the canon. There's been a kind of deep suspicion about truth claims. Universities have lost a sense of what they're all about. So I want to just say a few things about universities, and particularly Catholic universities. It's a Catholic matter to talk about universities at all, right? Universities are creations of the Catholic Church. Ex Corde Ecclesiae, this great document that St. John Paul II issued in 1990, means from the heart of the church. And what you may not realize about that document is that it's responding in fundamental ways to the manner in which Catholic universities in particular had moved away from their foundational principles. So I want to say just a few things about that, and I'll do so by reflecting on some of my own experiences as an undergraduate. And in fact, I grew up in South Bend, Indiana. I grew up in a part of South Bend that if you visited Notre Dame for a football game, you probably would not have driven by. So the west side of South Bend, the not so nice side. But I was friends with a lot of fellow classmates who had faculty professors. I felt like I was always learning about Catholic universities through sitting around their dinner tables. And my father, in fact, completed law school at the University of Notre Dame. So that was one experience. I didn't go to Notre Dame because at the time they were not offering merit scholarships. And it was very clear in my family, if you wanted to go to college, you needed to find your own financial means to do so. I went to a different Catholic university, a Jesuit one, because they did provide merit scholarships. And I didn't know what to expect there. I was going there to study classical languages. And I just knew Jesuits by reputation, right? That reputation was that they're a really solid order. So I expected orthodoxy. I expected a real commitment to academic rigor. I did experience some of that commitment to academic rigor. I had some really fantastic professors, particularly in classics. But I was really shocked by the way in which the student life side of the university was just a free-for-all. And I mean, really a free-for-all. Like, imagine the most hedonistic environment that you can. And that was going on in the dorms. And I wondered if the leadership of the university was aware of what was happening and realized they were. And they didn't want to hear from me saying, it really shouldn't be like this. And it reached a point for me where I thought, here I am saturated within a Catholic university environment, and I know that we have here the promotion of things that are in fundamental opposition to what the church professes, but maybe there's something wrong with the church. And I was close to stepping away from my Catholic faith and looking to be some other kind of Christian I didn't know. So many of my classmates completely abandoned the Catholic faith, and that was scandalous. So now, thanks be to God, I did not abandon my faith, but I learned some lessons there that have been plowed into the way that I lead the University of Dallas. And the fundamental lesson is, if you profess to be a Catholic university, you ought to, at a minimum, not give scandal to your students, right? Our Lord tells us that it's better to have a millstone cast around your neck and be cast into the sea than to lead little ones astray. Not that college students are little ones, right? In my case, this was the early 90s. I was blessed to discover that there's this thing called the Catechism, and 1992 was when it was reissued, the updated Catechism. So I was able to study that. I got connected to Patrick Madrid's work, Envoy magazine. I don't know if anyone remembers that. And my soon-to-be wife and I just plowed our energy into studying the Catholic faith and thinking about how we would construct our lives together where Christ was really at the center. But what was disappointing from an institutional point of view is we were swimming against the current. We were strange. People couldn't figure out why we were doing this. Why weren't we just going with the flow? So one thing we try to do at the University of Dallas is make sure that the peer pressure is all going in the right direction. Okay, lots of encouragement to really live a rich sacramental life. A lot of encouragement to live a vocation as a student and really commit yourself to your studies. So the flash forward a number of years, I was troubled by what I saw at this Jesuit university, grateful for the education I received. I was in graduate school and trying to figure out what I would do with my career. I wanted to teach, and I had been offered a fellowship to study in Europe at a Philosophical Institute. We had a couple of kids at the time. It was a great experience, and I had been thinking about what my personal mission would be on the other end of this time. And I was coming back to Mass in a car with the chancellor of this institute. And we parked, and he said to me, I'm really impressed with you. And I'd like you to finish your PhD and come here and be the rector of this institute. Now, that would have been attractive in a lot of ways. It had a fine reputation. I would have been in charge of the institute. I was just a 24, 25-year-old, very young, untested philosophy graduate student. And but I didn't give it a single moment of thought. It was like a spontaneous reaction where I said, my calling is to help reform Catholic education in America. And what that told me on the other end of that conversation was, this is something that was deep, that was working within me for a long time. I was endeavoring to integrate my Catholic faith with my commitment to studies. I was studying at a secular university. That's where I got my PhD. And that actually was far more liberating than being at a Catholic university that was constantly trying to tear down my faith. So when I received the opportunity to finally take on a position of leadership, those two moments have been deeply formative of my approach. Now, what does all this have to do with universities in general? The experience I had at this Jesuit university is fairly typical. And you can identify the moment at which Catholic universities stepped away from their calling. 1967, there was an important statement that was made, the Land O'Lakes statement. There were several prominent university presidents who said, we need to separate ourselves from the institutional church. We need to have distance from the religious communities that are governing us. Why do we need that? Because it's impossible to be really faithful to your Catholic identity and excellent. Right? And this is the underlying prejudice that Catholics themselves operate under. And I don't know if it's a peculiar American prejudice, but I see it in a lot of places, right? I find that Catholics oftentimes feel like if they're really going to be committed to professional excellence in whatever field, right, it needs to be separated from their sense of fidelity to the teachings of the church. Right? That was woven into a kind of status envy that a lot of Catholic universities were suffering in the 1950s and 60s and still suffer from now. So think of the irony of the fact that the Catholic Church is the creator of universities. It's from Catholic universities that the greatest scholars, mathematicians, scientists, and so on have been produced, right? The Catholic Church is the source of high culture in Western civilization, and yet Catholics in America suffer from a kind of anxiety about their status within the broader culture. So much so that they issued a statement, presidents of the most prominent Catholic universities, that we need to divorce ourselves from our Catholic identity so that we can embrace this commitment to excellence. That is precisely what John Paul II was responding to when he issued Ex Corde Ecclesiae. And some of you have probably heard of this document. Many Newman Guide schools subscribe to it. They all do, in fact. Every Catholic university is supposed to subscribe to it. It's not just a document, it's an apostolic constitution. To call yourself a Catholic university, you need to subscribe to this constitution. Relatively few of them do, because that separation has already been affected, and there's this distance that so many universities that still call themselves Catholic have created. But what is often missed when we look at that constitution and see the way in which Catholic universities are supposed to have markers of their commitment to Catholicism is that it is a document that lays out a path of excellence. Right? John Paul II was a university professor. He taught at a couple of different universities. He's the man of universities. This is not his only writing on universities, but even within this relatively short document itself, there is a clear commitment that every university of whatever level needs to have to advance research, to teach with excellence, and to be in service to humanity. Okay? That is often missed because the Land O'Lakes statement, there's this separation from a fidelity to the church. Then some universities, some colleges, Catholic colleges, reacted the other way and said, well, if we have to choose, we're going to choose fidelity. What I love about the University of Dallas is we wed fidelity and excellence. And in this way, we're not just from the heart of the church, but we're serving the heart of the church. So when I first encountered the University of Dallas directly as a candidate for a dean position, I was amazed at the intellectual vitality of the place. And most of my experiences, in fact, all of my experiences of Catholic universities from the past were, the Congregation of Holy Cross running Notre Dame, the Jesuits running Fordham, Xavier, Franciscans running Franciscan University. There's not an order that's running the University of Dallas. It's independent from any particular religious order. It's independent from the diocese. but we have got a close relationship with our bishop. It's not unlike JSerra. Very close relationship with our bishop. There's a Cistercian monastery that has grown up with the University of Dallas. There's a priory, a Dominican priory on campus. We have Nashville Dominican sisters who are like cousins of the Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, that you have here at JSerra. And they teach for us, and we're working on raising money to build a convent for that community on our campus. And we also have vibrant lay apostolates around campus. Opus Dei, the Legionnaires, Regnum Christi. There's a Legionnaire high school across the way. There's a TLM parish that's just up the street. And more besides. We've got a diocesan seminary on our campus. There's a Neo-Catechumenal Way seminary. We educate their men in both philosophy and theology. So the diversity of authentic Catholic charisms, all clustered around a relatively small university, attracted to it because of its, commitment to excellence, right? We're a magnet for those who want to wed a commitment to excellence with a commitment of fidelity to the church. I'm also deeply impressed by the placement rates of our students, right? You probably have heard that we've got one of the highest med school placement rates in the country. We have one of the highest rates of placement into law school. We also have students who are heavily recruited by major financial industries, Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, Charles Schwab, JP Morgan. They have come to us and said, we don't care what your students are majoring in. You're doing something that's absolutely unique. And if you will just help direct them to us, we'll do all of the technical training. Now, we do have a business major. We have majors that prepare our students for various careers, but these major financial corporations have said, we don't care. They can be an art major. They can be a history major. We'll do the rest. We know that they'll think well. We know they'll write well. We know they'll present themselves well. We know that they will be creative thinkers. And they're going to be the ones who are on the leadership ladder. And they are, right? So we have graduates who are top surgeons in health systems, graduates who are running multi-billion-dollar corporations, graduates who are White House attorneys. It's remarkable. For a school that has right now about 1,500 undergraduates and about 700 graduate students, we do have PhD programs and a business college and a really vibrant master's program in classical education, but we punch way above our weight. And it's this special combination of a commitment to really being Catholic and a commitment to a really excellent education. And if I can just leave you with one thought, it would be to be reflective about ways in which whatever your own professional path is, that you might suffer from a certain anxiety about whether or not those two are really compatible. Because I'm convinced they are. I'm convinced that the path to the reformation of Catholic education in this country, and I see that here at JSerra, is this commitment to excellence because of your fidelity, right? So I'll leave it there, and I would love to take questions and continue the conversation. And I'm so grateful to President Meyer and to Vice President Reedy, who I saw just a minute ago, and all of the welcoming leadership and faculty here at JSerra. This is a special place. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Sanford. I appreciate that. I had about 9 or 10 things I want to talk to you about. You covered all of them in your opening remarks here. So we're just going to chat about sports teams here. How does that sound?
Or how about the election?
You want to go right there?
That was really fascinating.
Yeah, you were traveling out on the West Coast here, for that last night. But I appreciate those opening remarks, and I think one of the things I appreciate about your comments is is there's a shared kindred spirit with what we're trying to do here at JSerra, right? The idea that there's a richness and a beauty to an independent Catholic institution that links itself faithfully to Mother Church, right? And all in her beauty and in the beauty of the truth. And we don't have to sacrifice our opportunities to help steep young men and women in our case, or in your case, in what excellence and work done really, really well for the glory of God looks like, right? There's no sacrifice to be made. So you showed us a beautiful video of the Rome experience, and I find myself thinking, I'm looking, we have some students here here in the room tonight, we have parents in the room, we have some folks who've had kids graduate through JSerra here in the room, and others who will have their kids coming up the pipeline. And I maybe you could speak a little bit to the unique value proposition of University of Dallas. The Rome experience is certainly one of those, but I've also heard you speak about the core curriculum at UD, which is unique amongst schools, because there are you mentioned the Newman Guide, right? There are other faithfully Catholic universities, joyfully, authentically Catholic universities. But UD has a really unique approach to creating this confluence of a shared academic experience through the core curriculum while still allowing pathways for unique professional pursuits.
Yeah.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and then I'll dive into a few other questions here too.
Oh, thanks for that question. So the core curriculum, we just call it the core. It's 2 years of integrated study, a little bit more than 60 credit hours. And it's strong in the humanities, but it's a liberal arts core. So point one, all of our students at the University of Dallas basically go through an honors program, right? We're the honors college for all of our students. And math and science is a part of this pathway. Language is a part of this pathway. All of our students get through at least intermediate level of language study, which means that they're able to read in that second language. So if whatever your disposition is towards language, I'll say to the students, we do have a way to help get you through. You can do it. If you're terrified of math, we've got a little variety that you can take. But our core math course, Euclidean and non-Euclidean geometry, it's the way we approach math is basically a kind of logic course, which is foundational to all the other work that you do. So it's the liberal arts, but very strong in humanistic disciplines, particularly literature, and that's one of the unique things. I'm a philosopher. I'm a philosopher who reads literature, and if you're a student at the University of Dallas, you read a lot of literature, and we teach writing through writing about things. We want our students to know how to make arguments. Okay, so a lot of universities have composition classes. Write about whatever you did in the summertime or whatever. We want our students to learn how to make arguments through writing. And that takes a tremendous amount of effort on the part of our faculty. It takes a tremendous institutional commitment on our part to have enough faculty to have small courses so that they can cultivate a real seminar in those courses and dedicate sufficient time to teach our students how to write well. The reason people at many schools do not emphasize writing is because it costs a lot of money and it costs a lot of time. There's a significant financial commitment that you need to make to teach people those fundamental practices that will really make a difference on the other end. So all of our students are going through these courses, and I'll use one of my sons. I have 7 of them, but one of my sons as an example. He started at another Catholic university, a fine Catholic university, in an honors program. COVID hit. He was going to have to go online for his whole sophomore year, and he thought, I'm going to take some courses at the University of Dallas so I can actually be in the classroom. And after about 3 weeks, he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to transfer those courses back into this other university. Part of it was the quality of the courses, but the bigger part of it was the fact that he had so many friends. Now, it wasn't just the friends in his class. It was because everyone else at the university were taking the same class in multiple sections. And you have, although it's a relatively small school, 1,500 undergraduate students, any one of them can go toe-to-toe with you on your interpretation of Homer. Any one of them is ready to, not quite come to blows about whether you think that Plato or Aristotle is right about fundamental questions of being. The love language of the University of Dallas is argumentation. When you walk across campus, you find students engaged in heated conversation, and if you overhear little bits and pieces of this conversation, it's almost always about what they're studying in their various classes. And then after 2 years, they go on into the majors, but they have that common set of objects. C.S. Lewis in The Four Loves distinguishes between friendship and romantic love by reflecting on the way in which friendship always requires an orientation towards some external object. You have a common passion about something beyond those two friends. So in romantic love, it's about gazing into each other's souls, so to speak, right? You look eye to eye at the other. In friendship, you move shoulder to shoulder forward in pursuit of something that's worthy of your collective attention, and you care about it. I love the fact that our students care passionately about the proper interpretation of Aristotle's metaphysics or Dante's Divine Comedy, right? They want to get it right. We give them the tools to get it right. They learn how to argue without quarreling, which is truly a lost skill in our day and age. And along the way, they are learning those fundamental skills that graduate programs, law schools, and employers want. But they learn those skills while doing real things. They're not learning the skills just to learn the skills, right? They're learning the skills while they're deepening their humanity in fundamental ways.
So I want to take it a little bit of a different tack here. So as you talk about, I think the very rich intellectual experience that students certainly have as part of the essence of a UD undergraduate degree, undergraduate experience. I also came across a few things in terms of the language that you use to talk about yourselves. And there was a phrase that I want you to comment on that I haven't seen before that I really appreciated in being steeped in virtue and the writing about virtue and ethics like you are, Dr. Sanford. But I've seen this phrase that UD uses called the virtue of playfulness.
Yeah.
And I found that very enchanting, right? The idea of the virtue of playfulness. Speak a little bit to what does that look like and how does it manifest itself in a place that at times, and again, I'm putting myself in the shoes of people that might be here tonight who've said, well, I've never studied Aristotle. I wouldn't know how to spell Nicomachean ethics. Right. Yeah. That may seem daunting, but it's not, right?
Right.
So speak a little bit to how, yes, is the academic experience challenging for sure, but there's a sense of wonder and playfulness that's encouraged at the university as well, and maybe some of the traditions and the unique ways that it manifests itself.
Yeah, thank you for picking that out. Yeah, I did sound pretty serious and somber, and that tends to be my personality. But one of the ways in which I think about students at the University of Dallas is they take things seriously, but they don't take themselves too seriously. I didn't get to the Rome program in answer to your earlier question, but one of the things that students love to do when they go to Greece is they challenge each other to Olympic contests in the place where the Olympics would actually occur, and then they return and they have the UD Rome Olympics, and there's a lot of silliness involved here. I was sent a picture from a friend of my son who's currently in Rome, in which he was lathered in shaving cream and was, in a group of several students reenacting Romulus and Remus in their youth, and if you know that famous image. So we just finished Charity Week at the University of Dallas. I remember the first time I saw this. So Charity Week is an opportunity to get students and faculty to support a local charity, almost always a pro-life charity. And I was 10 years ago walking across campus, and I saw this structure on campus. It's a jail. And then I saw a student take off in a dead sprint, and then realized he was about to catch up with another student who took off in an even faster sprint, but then that first student caught him and tackled him, and then took him to jail. So the way the money is raised is through imprisoning people. And you have to donate money to put them in prison. You have to pay money to get out of prison, or do something that is entertaining, like recite the Gettysburg Address or sing a song. And it becomes really frolicsome by the end of the week. Cistercian priests are notorious for finding creative ways to get out of jail. So that's an example of silliness, which I found surprising. And it makes sense. I mean, there's a reason why carnivals had such an important place within the medieval landscape. Moments in which you engage in a carnivalesque type set of activities, so long as certain fundamental moral principles are fully respected, is liberating and cathartic. And so this follows right after midterm week, when students have been really focused in an extreme manner to get through midterms. There are several other moments like that throughout the year. I am impressed by the fact that we have been consistently ranked in the top 10 of this past year. I think we were number 5 in the nation for the happiest students. And that's not just because of the whimsical or playful dimensions of the student body, and I should say the faculty and the priests and nuns. I'm not very playful or funny, but I appreciate the fact that so many other people are. And but that's not the only reason why our students are happy and self-reportedly happy, and not making it up. I don't know how Princeton Review comes up with these metrics, but again, consistently in the top 10 in the nation. People are happy when they have meaningful work. People are happy when they see purpose to those activities in which they're engaged. And going back to what I said about protest culture on college campus, I don't blame those students who are involved in that. They're looking for something meaningful to do. They're told, okay, the way in which you are expressing your commitment to fundamental moral principles is to find something to protest about and get really upset. And now I'm doing the college thing. I'm having my college experience. They're not engaged in meaningful work. Their university course of studies doesn't make sense. It's not an integrated whole. They don't have anything along the lines of what John Henry Cardinal Newman describes as moving towards the unity of knowledge. They're not reflecting on how it all fits together. So our students are engaged in meaningful work. They take it seriously. They don't take themselves too seriously. They're smart alecks in class sometimes, and yet will sir and ma'am their professors, and oftentimes clap at the end of class. That was jarring to me the first time I was teaching, and come up and thank me. Thank you, Dr. Sanford, for that excruciating lesson on Aristotle's metaphysics. Wow. So it's I find a beautiful combination and a deeply human combination. It's a humane place.
if I want to share an experience with the University of Dallas's culture that I didn't anticipate having last summer, but I did, and it was really beautiful. But before I share that, there was something else I came across on your website related to this, which was a quote attributed to G.K. Chesterton, that man is more himself, man is more manlike, when joy is a fundamental thing to him. And I think it gets to the idea that there's a seriousness of study that we should be pursuing right during these university years, and I would say also during one's high school years. But seriousness of study and seriousness of purpose is not divorced from radiating joy, right? And the joy of Christ, and whatever it is that we're doing. And there are ways and wholesome ways and fun ways that we can experience and radiate that joy that is rooted ultimately in the love of Jesus Christ and the love of one another.
That's right.
And I had a glimpse of this last summer when one of our graduates, who many of you know, John Cariotti, got married last summer, soon after graduating from another UD now alum. And we flew out for the wedding in the beginning of August. And I know your alums are very smart, but planning a wedding in Dallas in the beginning of August was an atrocious idea. I remember getting out of the car. It was about 108 degrees, and then we went inside and we got back in the car, and it was actually cooler in the car that had been locked for about 6 hours than it was outside. It was pretty amazing. Then anyhow, so we're at this wedding, and the wedding ends, and John and his bride Sally leave the reception hall, and we were standing as they drove away. And the whole, it's seemingly apart from family, it was dominated by University of Dallas alum. Yeah. And spontaneously broke into this beautiful Irish song, The Parting Glass. Yeah. Linking arms around with one another, and they all knew seemingly all 72 verses. It went on and on, and thinking, when's this thing gonna end? Kept going and going and going. And as they drove away, then they finished that song of Irish parting. And then they all joined in the beautiful chorus of the Salve Regina. Yeah. And it was all so spontaneous. And I thought, this is the culture, right? They're joyful, they're happy, right? They're serious about their faith. But they're as serious as they are about their faith, they're serious about friendship. Yes. Right? Which was really, really impressed me.
Yeah. The friendships that form, around the core, around those shared experiences, learning how to take seriously the things you should take seriously and not take seriously the things you shouldn't take seriously. And learning how to make mistakes, and those mistakes not seeming like the end of your life, learning to laugh at yourself, and learning to laugh with each other. It is a beautiful thing. I'm so grateful. I've got one graduate of the University of Dallas now, and two sons who are there now, a nephew who graduated, 3 nieces. One niece just graduated, 2 others are there. I want all of my kids and all of my siblings' kids and all of your kids to experience that joyfulness, that playfulness, that preparation for living a life in full.
All right, so we're going to turn real practical here for a moment. So you mentioned the rankings of joyful graduates and top 10 of joyful graduates in the country. So you also received, and again, these rankings perhaps are a little bit mysterious in how they come up with them, what's the equations, but the U.S. News and World Report puts out their rankings and regional rankings, national rankings, and the University of Dallas was just ranked number 6 for the best value school. Yeah. So speak a little bit to value. Clearly this is tied to economic value, but economic value tied with excellence in education. Yeah. How is it that, we'll call it this small liberal arts school in Texas, finds himself ranked in the top 10 of the literally thousands of colleges across the campus? Yeah, across the country.
We need to charge a little bit more, it sounds like.
Well, there you go. Right.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
But except for us with the JSerra discount, right?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. We have a high sticker price. Our tuition sticker price is above $50,000. But remember what I said about growing up in South Bend, Notre Dame was not open to me. Notre Dame was, for many years, many generations, serving the local Catholic population. I was a top student in the local area, didn't come from means, and it was inaccessible. one of the things I love about the University of Dallas is we want to make a University of Dallas education affordable to, rich, poor, and the great middle. And I have a large family. Some of you may have large families. You might make a decent living. That does not mean that you've got much money to commit to a college education, and particularly if you have multiple kids in college. So we also want to attract students that we know are being recruited by Notre Dame or Georgetown or SMU or wherever. And we want students in our classrooms who are really top students. So we offer a number of full tuition scholarships. Some of those are just for general excellence. Some are discipline specific. But over 98% of all of our students receive significant financial aid. And most of that comes in the form of merit aid. So, if you put room and board together with sticker price of tuition, we're in the 60s. The average cost of the University of Dallas education, including room and board, is in the low 30s. So,
See, JSerra is a total bargain, parents, just by the way. Okay, keep going, please.
Yeah.
Just one.
We work hard on raising money for scholarships. We work hard on analyzing what the FAFSA doesn't capture. Last year we introduced a family grant, we called it, because the FAFSA changed. We realized that families that were larger, who might have another child in college or even two, no longer had that taken into account when it comes to applying for financial aid. So we started offering last year, we still do this, $5,000 to students who are considering the University of Dallas an additional scholarship if that family has another child in college, at whatever college, right? Just recognizing the strain that puts on big families. And after the merit aid that so many of our students receive, because we want really good students, and that means that we need to make their education affordable. We do additional reflection with families on their particular financial circumstances and do whatever we can to meet those needs. That doesn't mean we can give it away for free. 90% of our operating budget is directly related to the tuition and fees that we bring in. Okay, so we're actually running a very tight ship, very close to the margins. Every year we're wondering, are we going to make budget? Are we not? You've had that experience, I'm sure. But we put every dollar we can into finding really outstanding professors, having enough outstanding professors to teach in those small classroom settings, and doing whatever we can to bring students from families who struggle to afford a University of Dallas education to a point at which they can. So,
thank you for that. And we'll want to open it up to questions here in a moment. But just maybe perhaps on that last comment, Dr. Sanford, I also think you mentioned the faculty on your campus and the students on your campus. You see, I think what's important to note is Dr. Sanford's talking, his first points of emphasis are the people, right? At the end of the day, I think the people are the most important part of our experiences. And I would say that about here at JSerra, and I would say that about the University of Dallas, that when you're thinking about what does life look like in the educational realm beyond JSerra, I think it's important not to focus on external trappings, but to think about who are the people that my son or my daughter, or that if you're a student, that I have an opportunity to rub shoulders with and form, hopefully the kind of meaningful relationships that Dr. Sanford mentioned about walking shoulder to shoulder with, not just during the college years, but potentially for the rest of your life in close friendship. Mm-hmm. And that's what the college experience is rooted in. And it's not to say that you can't have that and have other dimensions of the college experience well, but it's not about the externals, right? It's about the relationship. Right, so as you're thinking about places and you're thinking about whether it's University of Dallas or other campuses, I would really encourage you to think about the people that you're encountering.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and that is something I notice in the way you talk about JSerra. It's something I see in the ethos of everything that goes on here, And it's what we care about at the University of Dallas, right? And education is a slow process that occurs person to person, right? One at a time in many respects.
So, Dr. Sanford has agreed to stick around at least till midnight. He did a warm-up last night by staying up for the election until it was over, so he's all ready to go on West Coast time. But let's spend a few minutes if we have some questions we want to ask of Dr. Sanford in the public realm. We can spend a few minutes doing that, and then we can wrap things up and then break for some private conversation afterwards as well. So, who is feeling frisky and wants to start off with a question? Yes, DJ.
We've had quite a lot of our kids have gone to different types of schools, bigger schools, smaller schools. Our daughter went to Davidson, which is a smaller school, and I was always impressed with, I'm meeting my professor for coffee because I'm struggling with this one subject and things. So I would assume that that's an advantage of going. Can you talk about the advantage of going to a smaller school instead of a big institution?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question.
Dr. Sanford, let me repeat that question just for the benefit of those who may be there. So the question was, and I'll, in brief, was tell us about the benefit of being in a place in a university or college where you have a potential of a really intimate relationship with your professors versus a larger school where you're perhaps more of a number.
Yeah. So it's one of the most attractive elements of the University of Dallas to faculty members that we're recruiting, that they get to teach in this kind of environment. So the front end of this is finding top-notch scholars and professors who want to cultivate friendships with their students. So our class sizes, I mentioned, are quite small by design, and we also have a model of faculty advisors. So even small schools, but certainly big schools, have professional advisors. So you build a mentoring relationship with somebody else who's not your professor in those other programs, whereas our students are forced every semester to sit down with at least one faculty member, and they're not in fact forced. I mean, students are willingly engaging in this. Our faculty members are profoundly generous in not just spending time on campus with their students, but they open up their homes and have groups of students over for dinner regularly. Our faculty members are invited into dorms and will give little talks, or they'll watch a movie together with the students who live in that dorm, and then they'll have a discussion about it. Or I want to get involved in this. Ping pong tournaments in the dorms. I used to be good at ping pong. I'm not sure if I still am. I'd like to find that out. And so just spending time with them in that more intimate way. And it's not like they're looking to be buddies with the students. It's not like one-on-one time outside of sitting down and having a coffee. Our students hold our faculty in high regard, right? And the faculty know that. And so finding a way to break down some barriers through those quieter conversations is really valuable. And then the Rome program that has been mentioned a couple of times, the faculty members who teach in that program live on this same campus. It's 14 acres, but there are only 3 buildings, really. And the faculty and their families have their own apartments, but they're living there with the students. They travel with the students, and we change out the faculty on the Rome campus every couple of years. They go back to Irving, and we send out new ones, and that relationship continues over time. And when I go out and talk to groups of alumni, I've learned that it's really smart to take a faculty member with me because they're the real draw. They're the ones who have cultivated that relationships, 20, 30 years ago in some instances, and it still remains. And when alumni and families come out for our alumni and family weekend, they want to spend time with those faculty mentors and friends. So our faculty, they get to know our students well. They guide them in ways both professional and often personal, and they go to bat for them, right? They really get to know their students, and when those students are looking for career advancements or to get into medical school or what have you, they really go to bat for them. And that's hard to find. One other little thing I'll mention. So in the sciences, and in fact, in every major, in order to graduate, you've got to complete a major project. And you work directly with a faculty member. So in order to walk out of the University of Dallas with a biology degree, you have to engage in fundamental research with one of our faculty members. And our students have their hands on equipment that you normally can't touch until you're in graduate school, working with faculty members. Same thing in the other disciplines. The equipment's different, right? You're not playing with highly complicated devices when you're studying history, but you work closely with a faculty member. They get you through a major project and set you on your professional path through that achievement. That's another feature of that.
That's terrific. Thank you. Other questions? Yes. And let's have Charity. Thank you. We can pass the mic over.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. I'm going to ask you to sort of grossly generalize here. When students struggle at your university, what are they struggling with? What is hard about being a student
Yeah.
at your
So,
university?
I mean, it varies, of course. So some students, although they had good grades, may be struggling to get up to speed on reading a large amount of material. Some students, although they may have had good grades in high school, haven't really learned how to write. So those are two areas of a general sort that we have built up additional programs. In fact, we've developed a whole course called the 7 Arts of Language to help students who need a little bit of help, even though they're smart, but they just have not been fully instructed, and we get them up to speed. Some students, we have students from all 50 states, and some students struggle with homesickness. Some students struggle with anxiety, particularly in our post-COVID landscape. We saw a lot of students struggle with getting out and engaging with their fellows, right? And so we developed new programs of going in and making sure we pull them out of their dorm rooms and get them involved. We have a great dean of students. He's also an English professor, and he has cultivated different programs that invite our students to try new things, to use their hands, to get into an art studio, even if they're have no intention of becoming an art student, and learn how to fail, right? Our students, not just at the University of Dallas, but across the board, are unfamiliar with failure. And I think a lot of the anxiety that young people feel today is that they've got to be perfect. And a lot of the pressure that they get from the elders in their life is, you better not mess this up. But if you do, I'm going to smooth everything out for you, right? So there are helicopter parents, and then there are lawnmower parents, right? The helicopters are sort of hovering, and the lawnmower parents, they want to smooth the way. We think we've got young men and women at the University of Dallas, not boys and girls, and we want them to learn how to make mistakes and to pick themselves up. And it often happens, for instance, that students who've only had A's on their essays receive their first literary tradition essay back, and they've got a C, or God forbid, a C minus, right? The world's going to come to an end. I just got a C minus, and the temptation would be, I'm going to call mom, and I was the dean. I would get calls from mom, and you have a terrible professor at the University of Dallas. He doesn't seem to realize that my daughter, she's an A student. She's never had a C. He must have made a mistake. And what we spend a lot of time in orientation and along the way, and individual faculty members do this, is, no, you got a bad grade on your first essay. You'll have 4 more essays to write this semester, and we're going to get you to a point in which you're writing A-level papers for us. But go talk to your professor. Don't outsource your responsibility to find a way to pick yourself up and make progress, right? So replicating that on many fronts. Now, we have students who have more severe emotional, psychological challenges at times. We've got a full counseling center, a really outstanding director of that counseling center who's a committed Catholic counselor, which is hard to find. And he knows how to find additional ones. So we've got a full staff there. And that's needed for some of our students. But that director of the counseling center has worked closely with our dean of students to build out sort of additional spheres of support and help and activities to help those struggling students. So whether it's struggling academically, we've got a staff of tutors. Some of them are fully dedicated to that work. Some of them are students who they pull in. We've got fundamental courses that will get students both in the mathematical disciplines and in the humanities up to speed if they're in need of that. We plug them in after some initial testing. And then faculty members who actually care about them. And so if you haven't shown up for class twice in a row, you're going to get a call. Someone's going to go and figure out what's going on. So, thank you.
Antoinette, why don't we? Do you have a question? So, Antoinette, let's end with your question, and then we can break for some private conversation afterwards. So, Antoinette.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the spiritual formation and what opportunities you have at University of Dallas for that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Antoinette is not a plant, although she is an alumna. So we have. I mentioned those religious communities around campus, right? So if you imagine going from the outside in, daily mass, 2 times on campus, Eucharistic adoration every day. If you can't make it to the 12 or to the 5 o'clock mass, you can go to the 6:30 a.m. mass at the Cistercian monastery.
I'm sure that's packed with UD students, by the way.
You'd be surprised.
Is that right?
You'd be surprised.
Well, so I say that facetiously, but okay.
Yeah. They invite University of Dallas students to join them for their morning prayer, the office, and then it rolls right into mass. And there's a good number. Sometimes there are only 15 UD students. Sometimes I've gone there and there are 50.
Is that right?
Yeah. Not on holy days of obligation. You can go to the 8 a.m. Mass at the Dominican Priory, okay, which is also on campus, right? So those are like the main events. Confession 5 days a week, and a really generous chaplain who just extends the time and makes sure that he's available, brings in additional priests. Those religious around campus are providing a lot of spiritual direction directly. In addition to our chaplain and our deacon, who's the director of campus ministry, we have focus missionaries on campus, and their commitment is to pulling in those students who are on the margins. We're about 73% Catholic in our undergraduate student body. Most of the other students are Christian or Jewish, and but that's a great opportunity to be evangelized through the kind of Bible study that the focus missionaries provide. And then we've got a men's society, so small groups, formation on a larger scale, 2 women's societies. We've got sort of an anti-porn group that focuses on men, another one that focuses on women, and student clubs that are dedicated to particular works of service. So our Crusaders for Life is our biggest club, but we've got student groups who go and have a homeless mission, that they serve every weekend. It's called Finding Calcutta, in collaboration with a layman in the Dallas area, and many other opportunities besides. So if you want a spiritual director, you're going to find one at the University of Dallas, either male or female. And if you're looking to live a rich sacramental life, you will find ample opportunities to do that. We're consecrated to Our Lady of Guadalupe. That's something that happened in 2021, and we have this beautiful shrine on our campus of Our Lady of Guadalupe, so lots of devotional opportunities. If you're not a Catholic or if you've fallen away, you're going to have somebody encourage you to consider becoming part of a Bible study, or come with me to Mass, and that's along the lines of what I mentioned earlier about the peer pressure is moving in that positive direction, right?
Well, Dr. Sanford, it has been a total delight spending a little time with you this evening. I thank you for your generosity of time in leaving the confines of Texas to come to this state of California.
Yeah, it's been great to be in California.
Very happy to have you here. And your comments about Our Lady of Guadalupe, charity? Yes? Okay. I should have mentioned this at the very beginning, but we're really blessed today on campus. We have what I'm told is the only official digital replication of the tilma from Juan Diego in our chapel this evening. So our chapel is right through the door here. So if you have a moment to stop into our chapel on the way out or spend some time in devotion, it's a bonus gift tonight here at JSerra Catholic High School. But it's a real treat that that she happens to be on campus today. So please, before you leave, take a moment to pop in and have a chance to see a beautiful replica of the tilma that's found in Mexico City. But thank you, Dr. Sanford, and you can count on our continued prayers for much of the good work that you're doing at the University of Dallas.
Well, thank you, President Meyer, and count on mine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.